I came here to save you!
Fortress is taken. It is over.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
You're my only hope.
We shall fight on the beaches!
There will be days when we lose faith.
We band of brothers.
But take heart. Look around you. You're not in this fight alone.
I bid you stand! Men of the West!
Greetings, everyone. This is Caleb with KingsAdvisors, and today I'm going to review Jedi Survivor. Now, I want to preface this review with the fact that I actually really enjoyed the game. I like the openness of Jeddah and Koba, and I liked being able to go to Coruscant. That was really cool for me. And luckily, I didn't have many performance issues while playing through the story. However, as I do complete maps and find all the stuff that there's to find, all the collectibles and things like that, I have had performance issues crop up. The game has crashed, and Kobo does look like it's covered in oil, meaning there are a bunch of collection of pixels that are all rainbowy and look kind of like when you spill oil on a driveway when you're changing oil or something like that. However, I'm not really looking at those little issues that popped up. I'm more looking at the 24 hours I spent playing the game on stream. So we're going to look at this in a couple of different ways and give each one a score out of 10. They are story, gameplay, and quality of life. Now, quality of life will be a little more complex since I tend to think of it as things like the customization, how the game ran, things that don't really fall under gameplay or the story per se. So let me kind of define those real quick. The story, which will be the first thing I rate, is quite literally the story of Survivor. What you're doing from the start all the way to the end. Gameplay, like not how it looks, but how it plays. So, was the fighting smooth? Did the enemies seem inept? Did they seem difficult? Were they good? Was there a good balance? So I played on Jedi Knight, which is normal. And normal should have a good balance, a good give and take of difficult bosses and enemies and easier ones. It's just kind of how normal works. So first things first, the story. So story-wise, I definitely think this was a weaker story than Fallen Order. The story amounts to discovering this Jedi from the High Republic era in a Bacta-tank, and he turns out to have betrayed the Order back then and immediately turns bad. Now, I understand that there's a twist in this game, and Bode or Bode, I don't know how exactly how to say his name, actually turns into the final boss and turns out that he's been a spy for the Empire. I actually really like that. I really think that's a cool story, and that's what the whole thing should have been. It should have started with your team being wiped out, and then you either going on some sort of revenge mission, maybe tracking down some Inquisitors, something like that, and then finding out that you've been betrayed by your friend, and so now you have to go fight him. That's what they should have done. This whole thing with Tanalor and the High Republic, it felt forced. It kind of felt like an ad for a failing company, which is what the High Republic books are. Now, I know there are huge fans of Star Wars involved in this game. Stig Asmussen, the game director, Cameron Monaghan, the actor that played Cal, of course, Tina Ivlev, the actress that voiced Mirren, and Daniel Roebuck, who voices Grease, are admittedly huge Star Wars fans, and they've proven to understand what makes Star Wars different from sci-fi in general. I happen to believe that the High Republic stuff was kind of forced upon them, and they figured out the best way to insert it in their game without overwhelming the player, which I don't think they did. I think that's kind of why the High Republic kind of feels shoehorned into the moments before and after you meet Z and Dagon. And I gotta say that's a plus because you don't linger on this era that a lot of fans don't like. That kind of brings me into one of the other issues I have. And if this is supposed to be some sort of ad for the High Republic, they don't do it very well. You see, Disney's been advertising the High Republic books with the same imagery for, I think, like the last 5 years or however long they've been doing it. It's always a bunch of Jedi with their sabers lit up, and they've got the same gold trimmed cloak on. It's the same cloak Dagon wears throughout the entire game. The problem with this is the other High Republic Jedi that you see with him, Centauri Kree, doesn't wear that. She wears something that looks a little more similar to what Jedi of the Old Republic and the Modern Republic and all that have always worn, those Jedi robes. So you've got an imagery problem here. You've got the bad guy looking like all the Jedi that you're trying to sell in this new High Republic thing. And it doesn't work because you've created this connection between bad guys and your good guys. That's not really an issue with the game. It's more of an issue with, well, I guess it kind of is. It's an issue with the art department, I guess. But yeah, that kind of was just something I noticed. It was a weird thing that I noticed. Now, this is going to be probably the more controversial part of my review. But the big problem that I have with Survivor, beyond the High Republic stuff, beyond the removal of fights that kind of feel like they should be there, but they forgot to put them in, is the Cal Marin relationship storyline thing. I have long maintained that Star Wars does not need sexual relationships. Now, some people will say that this isn't a sexual relationship. There's no sex. You're right. There is none. But it is implied that Cal and Marin are going to have a relationship beyond friendship. And the Jedi Code makes it clear. The rules of the Jedi make it clear. The tenets in the code are clear. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony. There is no death. There is the Force. It is clear that love and attachments are forbidden for Jedi. Now, it's true that there were some Jedi that had relationships. Ki-Adi-Mundi comes to mind. Ki-Adi-Mundi was permitted to have relationships because his species required every male to father children in order to keep the species alive. So he got a hall pass from the council. So when I say things like this, when I say Star Wars does not need sexual relationships, or Star Wars doesn't, Jedi should not be in relationships, people always come back with things like, well, what about Anakin and Padme? What about Han and Leia? What about Satine and Obi-Wan Kenobi? What I'll say about that is, one, Han and Leia are not Jedi, despite what Disney will want you to say. Therefore, that's a fine relationship. Does not break the Jedi Code. Anakin and Padme had to happen. George needed a reason that Anakin went to the dark side. And what better reason than passion? They have that whole conversation. Are you allowed to love? I thought that was forbidden for a Jedi. Attachment is forbidden. Possession is forbidden. Compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is central to a Jedi's life. So you might say that we are encouraged to love. And all Anakin is doing right there is trying to reason his infatuation with Padme around the Jedi Code. People always come back with, what about Luke and Mara Jade? They fell in love, got married, had kids who joined the Jedi Order. Yeah, they sure did. And that storyline was created prior to George Lucas creating the tenets of the Jedi Code that prevented relationships. So doesn't really count because the rule now stands. Beyond all these little things, though, the reason I have a problem with this, the reason I have a problem with the Cal and Marin relationship storyline is Cal has just watched a relationship that breaks the Jedi Creed, Jedi Code, destroy everything he knew. And now he's going down the same path. He's decided, I can do it better. I just think it's stupid. I cannot stand the constant need to replace relationships in Star Wars among the Jedi. The whole purpose of this rule is so these knights and masters know that their life and purpose is now bigger than just their families, that they have a duty to the thousands of systems and trillions of people in the galaxy. That's why that's why the code exists. That's why these tenets and rules exist, so that peacekeepers know that they can't make decisions based off of how it would hurt their family. It's the whole thing Batman says. He can't be in a relationship with someone because if his enemies knew that he had someone, then they could go after him through them. That's the problem I have with this. And I'll always have that problem no matter what anyone says. Now, story-wise, there was some stuff that I really liked about this game. One of them, they did a very good job with Kira Junda, I think is how you say her name. She was so much more likable and personable in this game. I don't know if it was because they shaved her head. I don't know if it was because they did a better job with emotion capturing, but there was something about her in this game that was so much more welcoming, so much more easy to like than she was in the last game. I did not care for her in the last game, and I thought that hurt the story for me. But in this, she was just so much better. And when she dies, it's heartbreaking because she's so close. And for a moment, she lets the passion get to her. And that's what causes her downfall. And it's just it's sad. But it was meant to be sad. So it did its job. And like I said earlier, I really liked having to go to the Imperial what's it called? Outpost, the thing the ISB is at. That was really cool. Fighting against Bode, however you say his name, was really good. I liked it. That part of the story was great. He's doing all this to protect his girl. He's a fallen, I guess he's a fallen Jedi who has basically turned his back on the Jedi because he's got this kid now. And he's another reason why relationships in Jedi don't work, because he has chosen his child over his responsibility as a Jedi. And how could you not? How could someone not choose their child? Overall, though, I give Survivor, I give the I give the Survivor storyline between a 5.5 and a 6. I really preferred that Fallen Order storyline. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day about the storyline, and they were saying, we've already seen the story of a Padawan that survived Order 66 fighting and battling Inquisitors and doing all that. We've seen it multiple times. And honestly, I can only think of, obviously, we kind of see it in Fallen Order, but Rebels is the only other time that I can really think of that you see that kind of storyline. And so to kind of say that we're tired of that storyline, I think is a cop-out. I think that there's a lot of good stuff they could do to continue that storyline. And I think they kind of failed with that. Now, this is the part of the review I was really looking forward to. Gameplay. So, gameplay and quality of life reviews are going to be, the gameplay in this game is better than Fallen Order. You move better. The fact that you have a dedicated dual wield system is even better. The amount of stances, this kind of falls more into quality of life, but the amount of customization, there's so many things, the amount of enemies, everything it's not easy. And one of the issues that Fallen Order had for me was it became sort of repetitive. It was easy to figure out. There were never more than like 3 or 4 enemies, so it wasn't difficult to just kind of time everything. This is very much different, especially with the open worldness of Kobo and Jeddah. You've got constant groups of stormtroopers or the bounty hunter groups coming after you. You've got bigger enemies all over the place. It just worked. And there's definitely times where you're like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? You've got 15 of these units, they're all not one-hit kills. You, if they get on up on you, you're not able to defend yourself because they all start hitting at different times. It gets a lot. But that's why you have to be smart. You've got to kind of figure out, okay, well, if I start from a couple feet back and use a force pull to kill some of these guys, then I can thin out the herd, maybe go on defense a little bit next, then I can jump back and go on some offense. It works. It just feels like what a Star Wars storyline or a Star Wars game should play like. Now, there is kind of an annoyance that for me. So I got annoyed when you drop down on an enemy, when you're above them and you press X and you go down, you grab them and you like flip on the ground. It always kind of seemed to me that should be a different kind of kill. You should bring your lightsaber down and basically cut them in half. Maybe not if they're a person. If they're a droid, you should be able to do what your finishing move with B2 battle droids are. But that's more just like a tiny little footnote of criticism in the gameplay. The amount of the force tears were really kind of fun because they get much more difficult. So the very first one I did was like defeating 140 battle droids, and that was so cool because we've never really gotten a game where we could feel like a Jedi in the Clone Wars, where you were sitting there at the front lines of troopers carving up battle droids. And you get that in this. You get this multiple times. You get it during that one force tear. You get it during several times that you're on Kobo because of all the battle droids running around. That's oh my God. I can't really explain just how fun that was. I like the city aspect that you do. So if anyone remembers back in some of the older Assassin's Creed games, you'd always have a home base and you'd build that base up. You'd improve shops. Improving shops will allow you to buy better stuff. So I really enjoy that we were able to kind of, I guess, rescue people. I enjoyed seeing the different people. Now there were some people that wound up talking to that I just didn't want to talk to them. The really weird Southern lady, that was a bit weird. It's definitely. I mean, I'm from the South, but that's an accent that I feel like kind of takes me out of Star Wars. It was really cool how some of the interactions that you would make with the people that would wind up showing up at the cantina would then give you stuff later. So that Holo Tactics game was actually a lot of fun. I spent 30-40 minutes during one of the streams just playing through all the things. It was a lot of fun trying to figure out the balance of using range versus melee trooper or characters to try to defeat their choices. And I'll give you a hint if you get this far. The droidicas, anytime you can afford one or two droidicas, they're a godsend in that. They make it so easy. So gameplay, I think I would give a 9. There were a couple things here and there. Some of the puzzles were, I don't necessarily think more difficult than they needed to be, but I think some of them were a little more complex than they needed to be. I was doing one the other night where it was with one of the ones with the stuff that BD1 shoots out, the purple stuff, and you had to, I think there were like 4 or 5 parts to it. And the first 4 weren't beyond the realm of what they normally have been. You find the little ball, you put it in the thing, and then you track the power to the stuff you have to clear. But the final one, you wound up having to bring the stuff all the way up to like a different staircase and then build it up there, grab the ball, put it in another thing to open a bridge, and then run it over the bridge, up the staircase, into the next thing. And it was just one of those things that it felt harder than they needed to make it. And I'm not usually someone that says, oh, I wish this was easier. For example, the Vader fight. That thing was a pain in the ass. And anyone that watched me stream it knew that I couldn't stand it. But of course, after I finally beat him, it was like, yes, finally, I did it. That's something that someone's saying, oh, Dark Souls needs easy mode. No, you just need to hashtag get good. So yeah, overall, I give the gameplay a 9. Quality of life. So as I said earlier, quality of life is a little more complex. It's not straightforward. It's more like how the game played, the customization, the stuff that isn't the story and the fighting. So as anyone that's played this game so far knows, and probably anyone that's seen a lot of stuff so far, knows that there's a huge amount of customization. I ought to have the game open while I do this to just kind of run through all the customization. But if I recall correctly, there are about 19 of every lightsaber part, which so there are about 19 different parts of every single part of the lightsaber. Now, if I'm remembering the amount of parts correctly, that is over 322 million different combinations. Now, if I'm off by one of them, which I could be, it's actually over 16 million. But that is still a huge number of customizations. So I actually really love my lightsaber. So as I was saying, huge amount of customization, the sheer amount of costumes, colors, even the amount of blaster stuff and the amount of customization for BD1. So it's not even just about customizing you, but you can make BD1 look different. In fact, the only thing you can't customize in this is the freaking mantis, which I kind of thought was weird, but I don't know. Maybe I haven't found the screen yet, which is kind of weird. I loved having a dedicated dual wield system this time. You know, we heard reports that when they announced that there would be different stances, that they wanted to do that in Fallen Order, but they kind of ran out of time. And I like that they took the time. They gave us several different stances. I didn't really use crossguard. There is a challenge to use crossguard in something, and so I used it there. But beyond that, didn't use it. Wasn't a fan. I've never really been a fan of the heavy weapons in games like this. I used blaster a little bit, not a lot. You know, when you're on some of the animals that you get to ride, blaster kind of becomes the thing. You can swing your lightsaber, but you can also shoot. So I used it there, and then I used it a couple other times. But I was more of a single blade and dual wield blade guy, and it was a lot of fun. Someone did point out to me that when you're using dual wield, both lightsabers are short, kind of. It's not. I've always kind of seen dual wield as a regular sized lightsaber and a smaller lightsaber, kind of like the Japanese shonto blades, I believe is how you say it. It's a smaller blade with your katana. So that's kind of how I've always viewed that. In Survivor, they do appear to be two smaller lightsabers, one bigger than the other, but not a full size blade and a smaller blade. There's a part of the game when you're chasing Bode out of the temple on Jeddah where you found out that he's a bad guy, and you get to chase him on a speeder, which is so cool, especially with it being the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. You get to go do a speeder chase. And the only problem with all of this is as far as I've been able to tell, it's the only time you can get on the speeder. And I would have preferred to see more vehicles, more stuff to move around on in these bigger worlds like Jeddah and Koba. Beyond that, and beyond that, I thought the quality of life was pretty good. Now, I said earlier that I wasn't really worried about graphics and things like that when it came to quality of life, but I will say that we gave them an extra 8 weeks to do this game. So how bad was it 9 weeks ago when it was originally supposed to come out? I'm annoyed that I bought this on PC. At the turn of the year, I built a PC. It was a lot of fun. And earlier, when I was playing Hogwarts Legacy, I bought that on my Xbox and I remote played to my PC to stream it. And that was a lot of fun. It was easy. The only problem was that every now and then stuff would pop up on the screen that would then pop up on the stream because that's how remote play works. And because it was remote playing, every now and then you could see the frames catch up almost. You'd see the little lines going across trying to catch up. And so I didn't want to have to see that again. And I didn't want the stream to see that anymore. So I said, you know what? I've got a good computer. I'm going to play on my PC. And the fact that the PC version was the worst of the three, that they weren't able to stabilize things, it's just annoying. Because while I understand that when you make a game for multiple consoles, you basically have to make a new game each time. Porting is not simply like downgrading or upgrading. It requires different coding because the different systems run on different codes and they read things differently, which is why you can't put a PlayStation game in an Xbox. So that's annoying. It's annoying that we extra 8 weeks and it wasn't finished when they released it. So I'm going to dock them on that. Quality of life. Even though I said at the beginning I didn't really care about performance, as I finished this review, I've kind of been thinking about it, and performance is important. And while I'm not necessarily someone that says I need to run every game at 120 frames a second, 14 gigawatts of RAM, yada, 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 I should still not feel like I'm playing a game on a original graphics card. And there were times that I felt like that, and I'm not happy about it. So quality of life, they're going to lose a point for releasing an unfinished game. So quality of life gets a 7.5. It was going to be 8.5. All that the sheer amount of lightsaber customization is a huge portion of the quality of life thing. I love it. It really is one of my favorite parts of this game. So overall, I give Survivor a 7 out of 10. I think there's some stuff that would have made it a much better game. I think there are story issues with this game. It becomes very tropey. It becomes very obvious what's going to happen throughout it. There is never really any time that I go, oh, or wow, that just happened, or really anything like that. It was a bit disappointing. I still enjoy playing it. I'm still 100%ing it. It was still great to be back in that world, being a Jedi. Cal is still a really cool character for me, and I'm still excited for the third one. When it comes out, I'll definitely get it day one. I'll play it, I'll stream it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But this one was weaker than Fallen Order, and I would like to see them go back to the storyline they created in Fallen Order. And on that note, thank you everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you get notifications on when we go live, when we post new content, and all that kind of stuff. And please follow us on Twitter at KingsAdvisors_.